Hello, my name is Kevin Dunn. I'm the Vice President of Software Business Development at Fekete. Today, I would like to introduce you to our most recent innovation, Fekete Harmony. Fekete Harmony is an evaluation toolkit for both conventional and unconventional reservoirs, but we're going to focus on the strengths of the software as an unconventional toolkit. Fekete Harmony is a well performance analysis environment. This means it incorporates the traditional well evaluation tools found in Fast Decline Plus, including decline analysis, volumetrics, and material balance, with the advanced methods that are found in Fast RTA. This would include type curves, analytical and numerical models, and the flowing material balance. Let's take a look at what the Fekete Harmony environment looks like. When we enter the software, you'll notice that there's a list of wells that are part of our project on the left-hand side. These are organized into hierarchies based on the different attributes associated with each one of the wells. This data may be loaded from public data sources, or it may have been loaded directly from our internal company database. If we have loaded it from that internal company database, we can go back months afterwards and we can update the production with a single click of a button. The GIS that you see on the right-hand side is plotting the locations of our wells, so we can see where all of these wells are with respect to each other. Plus, we can select wells we'd like to analyze or post information that we would like to use as part of the analysis work we're doing later on. The Data tab stores all of the data properties, reservoir properties, fluid properties, and other information that we may need for our analysis project. You'll see here we've got gas properties, oil properties, and water properties all stored here, as well as our formation, compressibility, and rock properties to do with our reservoir. The wellbore information is also included, and we can have multiple different wellbore configurations through time. The Diagnostics tab allows us to see information plotted any way that we like. It's easy to manipulate these plots and create any kind of analysis plot that we'd like at this point, and they're easy to save. Once we've saved a plot, we can create dashboards where we'll take different diagnostic plots and use these plots in order to sort through our data and find information that we think may be important before we do our analysis, so that the analysis reflects all the information and only the best information that we need to work with. The Analysis tab is the fourth tab over, and it includes all the different analyses methods in Decline Plus and Fast RTA. In Decline Plus, you have traditional decline analysis, volumetrics, material balance, ratio analysis, and forecasting. The type well functionality is available when we deal with groups of wells. The flowing material balance, type curve, analytical, and numerical models are all part of the RTA suite, and we can mix and match each one of these different methods into a workflow that we want to use to evaluate our wells. With this Marcellus well, our traditional decline curve, rate versus time, you can see here we're able to do a very quick decline analysis, which this is typically the way we book our reserves and the way we communicate with our investors and the SEC. Now in this case, you can see we've got a good decline analysis, but we may have used a b-value to generate this decline that exceeds what we'd normally accept as a good b-value in this case. In order to create some backup, we can start to link other more complex methods into the analysis work we've done here. For example, the unconventional gas module, which is another method built into the RTA software, combines a number of different methods we used to use independently into a single analysis. We start with the square root of time plot, which is a good linear flow diagnostic. When our data lines up in a straight line on this plot, it tells us that we're in linear flow. If our data begins to peel off the top of this line and we start to see it go vertical, that tells us that we're seeing boundary effects. In this case, you can see that we've got only linear flow. You can also detect from this analysis that there's a skin present, as this does not pass through the origin of the plot. When we change the slope, it changes the productivity of this well. Now you can see as I move that analysis, the type curve on the bottom, the shape is changing. This is a response to the analysis that we're doing here on our square root of time plot. Now in addition to that, we can also change the tail end of this curve, or the drainage side, by changing the size of our stimulated reservoir volume. This is controlled by the flowing material balance plot that you see here. As I extend the size of this reservoir, it extends my type curve out, and you can see we're matching our data very nicely here. The green dotted line that you see here is the calculated end of linear flow time. That line should show up at the point or before the point where the data begins to come off of this straight line curve. If we have only data that's on the straight line, indicating that we're still in linear flow, it gives us the indication this line should be showing up at a minimum at the end of our data. On the bottom right corner, we have a rate versus time plot. This is the traditional analysis that we're used to using for our reserve bookings and for communicating with our investors. This plot is now easily usable in the other methods in the software. But it's more than just the traditional decline plot because it's linked to all of these different, more analytical techniques. Once we've done this analysis and we have some idea from our square root of time plot what kind of productivity we're dealing with for this well, we can go to a more complex analytical model. You can see here that we've gone through and done an analysis and we've history matched our data. Let's switch to match both on the rate and the pressure data, and you'll see that our synthetic rate information matches very closely with the actual rate data that's been measured. This validates that this model is very closely replicating what we'd expect to see in reality. Every single model that we've created has the ability to generate a forecast, and using the model that we created, we can generate a forecast that looks something like this. But of course, we want to ensure that this forecast matches very closely with the decline forecast that leverages only a b-value and that is going to be used for our reserve bookings and our valuations. When I go into my rate versus time plot, I can take my analytical model forecast and post it right on top of the same plot. This allows me to see how the variation is between the decline work that I did before and the model analysis that I've created now. I can then go in and make adjustments to this. If I want to improve my b-value a little bit to get a little closer to this analysis, perhaps change out the shape a little bit, I can get my analysis to match much closer to the analysis that I had previously done with decline analysis. And now my analysis parameters for my decline will give me a forecast that looks very much what my analytical forecast is from my model, and yet this is in a format that's easily representable in my reserve reporting. In addition to being able to do all of these different methods and link all the different analyses into a workflow, I can store these workflows simply by selecting the Favorites button. When I store this workflow, not only does it allow me to do a consistent analysis on all the wells I'm looking at in this area by selecting this workflow every time I analyze a well, I can also go in and pass this along to others. So if I've decided that this is my workflow for Marcellus, I can save this workflow, and now when I look under my favorites, I'll have all the methods in my Marcellus workflow ready to go. The next time I want to look at a well, I simply launch the analysis workflow, and it will always create the same list of analysis methods. The complexity of different analytical and numerical models that we've included here allow us to model many different situations when we're dealing with unconventional resources. So if we've got multifrac horizontal wells, we can now model right out to the extent of the completion geometry to ensure that the forecast that we're getting actually accounts for fracture interference. If there's an area that I want to go and do an analysis on, perhaps for the purposes of acquisition and development, let's say, for example, we've got an area on our map that we want to go in and do some work on. This data has all been brought in as public data. And perhaps in this case, I want to look at a group of wells in this area because we're looking at acquiring some nearby acreage. And I want to know approximately what does an average well in this area do. It's very easy for me to determine. I'm going to go ahead and select a group of wells that are near the area where my new acreage is going to be. The wells are going to show up on the left-hand side as being highlighted, and I'm going to include these wells in my type well. In order to do that, I'm going to have to add them into my custom group. I drag that list down, drop it into the customs group box, and now my custom group includes all of the wells that were selected. I'm going to analyze this at the custom group level, and now my type well tool becomes available. If I want to do a type well, I select gas type well, and you can see it's created an average out of all the wells that were selected. You'll also notice that there's a number of wells that don't appear to be analogs to this well. it's very easy for me to go through and find those wells that don't match up, and I can simply remove them from the average. Once I've selected all the wells that make up my type well, I can then go in and do a decline analysis. The analysis that we've done here is a very good analysis for forecasting what we expect our type well to do. And so we're able to go in now and take this analysis, we can copy this and apply it to other wells. So if I copy this onto my clipboard, that analysis is now usable in other areas. If I wanted to go out and add more wells into the field, I can do that simply by clicking and dropping those wells onto the map. Now when I go analyze this new well, which of course will have no production data, I can drop my forecast on, and if I need to, I can change the start date of my forecast. I can create many of these development wells and put them together and consolidate them at a group level to generate a forecast of what my new acreage may be able to provide. The Harmony software has been developed in such a way where you'll notice there's very few menu items and very few buttons to work with. Everything's been developed in such a manner that it'll require minimal amounts of time to get up and running with the software, and is very easy for your users to maintain their efficiency even if they're not using it on a regular basis. Fekete Harmony is probably one of the most innovative tools ever developed by Fekete. It incorporates what we believe are the most important traditional and advanced evaluation techniques that are required when we're dealing with unconventional reservoirs in order to have the backup that we need to submit our reserves and have confidence in our forecasts. It also maximizes your efficiency by ensuring that users recognize the buttons and the features and the functionality inside the software, not having to learn a lot of new things and new commands and new controls. Finally, it supports capturing those workflows that you've created after you've analyzed wells and using them throughout your company to ensure that you use a consistent method to evaluate the wells in your area. Thank you very much for your time today. If you have any questions on the Fekete Harmony application, please don't hesitate to contact us.